While most of us are focused on Christmas shopping, Deion Sanders is focused on putting together a top transfer portal class, and he's doing just that.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Bourber. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedon and use code LOCKEDON for a first deposit match up to $100. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. We're also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you for making me your first listen every day. I appreciate it. Coach Prime, he had a transfer portal explosion again. This past weekend, they hosted around a dozen-ish visitors, and they landed commitments from almost all of them. It was quite bizarre. Not bizarre, because I feel like with Colorado and Coach Prime, you just have to come to expect this. But I wanted to so this was the list that they had visiting. They had Chris McClellan from Florida, Mike Lockhart from West Virginia, Chidozie Nwankwo from Houston, Quincy Wiggins from LSU, Preston Hodge from Liberty, Chris Brazel from Tulane, Cordell Russell from TCU, and Walter Taylor from Vanderbilt. They ended up landing Taylor, Russell, Hodge, and Wiggins. And then they also got a bonus commitment by way of one Mr. and Quinn Barnes from Alabama. So Colorado's class currently ranks, according to 24/7 Sports, as the top class in the portal. LSU and Ole Miss are right behind them, trailing. But I think one thing that stands out to me about this portal class already, is you look at so 24/7 Sports actually has Ole Miss as number one and Colorado number two currently. Ole Miss has an average of 90.22. Colorado has an average of 88.23, which is a really darn good average. And Colorado is thriving in the portal right now, and the program is rebuilding. I wanted to go through each of these guys and kind of talk about what they bring to the table, because I think realistically, we are getting excited about these portal guys, and it's a great thing. It's a grand thing. And it's just one of those things where we have to keep in mind, what role will they play for Colorado? What are they looking to do? So starting off with Preston Hodge, the Liberty safety, defensive back. He had 48 tackles and 2 picks this past season. He's going to provide some depth in the secondary. Obviously, they had Trevor Woods, they had Miles Slusher, they had Roderick Ward, and they had a lot of names back there. And Coach Prime said he wanted to get some more guys in there with experience, production, and that's exactly what Preston Hodge is. Very productive player for Liberty. He was the most productive, most proven player of this portal weekend for Colorado. They bring in Quincy Wiggins. So Quincy Wiggins comes in at 6'5", 265. Former top 50 recruit in the 2022 class. He was a 4-star prospect and a number one player in the state of Louisiana at that time. Has a big frame. He's talented. Brian Smith talked about him. I think it was on Friday's show when I had him on, about his potential. It just didn't happen at LSU. He's someone who needs that fresh start. He doesn't have a lot of film to go off of. In fact, he only has a couple of appearances for the Tigers. He didn't really he had 2 solo tackles this season, appeared in just 2 games, one against Georgia State and the other against Army. So he obviously did not have the impact that he would have hoped. Last season, he had a total of 3 total tackles. So for Quincy Wiggins, it's a situation where it reminds me of Savell Smalls, where big name, former big recruit, coming from a bigger program. Obviously, LSU is bigger than Washington. And they just didn't have the impact that they were expected to have. And so I think Quincy Wiggins is looking for an opportunity. He's going to have that because this defensive line lost some people, and I'll talk about that. As you can see over here, or maybe over here, I don't know which way it is when you guys watch it. It's on my right. Departures. I'll talk about departures when we get there. But Colorado's going to have some openings across the defense line. They need some size. They need some physicality. And they need to stop the run. They need to pressure the quarterback. And hopefully, they're hoping Quincy Wiggins is the answer to some of those problems. And then Cordell Russell, another top talented recruit that didn't play this past season. Former 4-star recruit, ranked as the number 12 receiver in the 2023 class, didn't play for TCU. He had 23 offers, had pretty much every school imaginable after him. Goes by the nickname Baby T.O. Avid Colorado fan, Baby T.O. or avid Colorado fan, T.O. So, and realistically, I'll talk about this. I'm going to do an episode about this in the coming days. I think Colorado has the best receiver room in the Big 12. You get Will Shepherd from Vanderbilt. You add Will Shepherd. You already have Jimmy Horn. You have Travis Hunter. You get Cordell Russell. You have Omarion Miller. You have Draylon Miller coming in. This Colorado wide receiver core is probably the best in the Big 12. And I think you can make an argument, which obviously we don't know where everybody's ending up yet and who's going to return, who's going to do this. But I think when things are all said and done, Colorado will have a top, at worst, 10 receiver core in all of college football. And so that's an exciting thought, because realistically, Shannon Sanders is just going to slice and dice defenses as he did last year. So that's another transfer that they brought in. And then sticking with the defensive line, they go out and get I believe it's Anquin Barnes, or that's how I'm saying it. Hopefully I'm not mispronouncing that. Anquin Barnes from Alabama. Another guy similar to Wiggins, who former top recruit, didn't play a lot for Alabama. He actually didn't play all this past season. He has no stats registered. He's listed as a sophomore, 6'5", 314. They're going to probably plop him right in the middle with Bishop Thomas and Mark McNeil, and just let those guys go at it. It's more depth at worst. Like, if these guys, I think the good thing about where Colorado is right now in the trenches, I wouldn't say their trenches by any means are stout and like ready to contend for being one of the best defense lines in the country, but it's a defense line that has depth now, or is getting some depth, and that's what they needed, because obviously teams are running around through and over them nonstop, and Colorado obviously needs to figure out a way to get that figured out in order to kind of, I mean, you don't want to constantly be ran over. If teams can run the ball on you all game long, it makes life difficult for the defense. It makes life difficult for the offense, getting back on the field and just knowing that every possession they have the ball, they have to score, because realistically the defense isn't going to stop anybody. And so they're getting some depth. They're getting a lot of nice depth on the defense line. Hopefully Wiggins and the Alabama transfer Nico Barnes. Hopefully they pan out. Hopefully they find larger roles for themselves, and they just need an opportunity. And Colorado's going to provide them that. They're going to have chances to play. They just have to take advantage. And then also, they added some more depth to the quarterback room. They added quarterback Walter Taylor from Vanderbilt. Now, I see a lot of people going back to my episode where I said Colorado has a quarterback or a recruiting problem because they lost Danny O'Neal and Antoine Hill. I'm going to be honest. I think both the Wade quarterback, I think his name is Keaton, is the quarterback. There's twins, so I always have to quiz myself. Yes, so Keaton is the edge. So Destin is the quarterback. So I think both Destin Wade and Walter Taylor are good quality backups for Colorado. Do I think either of them will be the quarterback of the future for the program? I don't know. I think Coach Prime, given the opportunity, is either going to pursue a quarterback really hard in this 2025 class, depending on who it is, depending on who they see fit, or they're going to be one of the biggest bidders next year for the transfer portal. Because, every year there's going to be a quarterback who didn't get an opportunity elsewhere, or maybe just needs like a chance to kind of take off, and like maybe it's like a Kyle McCord. Maybe they get a Kyle McCord type player. Maybe they get like a Will Rogers type player next year, whoever it may be. But they did get Walter Taylor. And so let me tell you about Walter Taylor. Sophomore, 6'7", so he's ginormous. I don't know if Colorado does this, but I know a lot of other football programs around the country do it. Like Clemson, they went viral for this a couple of years ago when Trevor Lawrence was there. They were playing intramural basketball. I have to imagine that Colorado's intramural basketball team would just absolutely run the table, because Walter Taylor, 6'7", 235. Dude's going to be a menace. He's probably elite. Could probably dunk, just toss him some lobs, but on the football field, he didn't have the best season. He went 5 of 15 for completing 33% of his passes for 44 yards and an interception. He is a dual threat quarterback, which, Colorado's offense line is a lot better, so you don't have to worry about running for your life all the time. But it is nice to have that little facet every game. He rushed 30 times for 103 yards and 1 touchdown. So him and Destin Wade are both, I would say, It's going to be them, Ryan Staub, competing for that backup quarterback spot. There's more bodies in the room. Are they the right bodies to step in for Shedeur Sanders? I don't know. I think Coach Prime wanted to have more options at quarterback. I think he wanted to not be in a situation where, which I mean, Ryan Staub got really good experience, and I thought he played quite well against Utah. I think he wanted to be in a situation where he didn't have to throw someone who's unprepared into the game. Now, Destin Wade hasn't played in a game since 2022, and obviously I just read you Taylor's stats at Vanderbilt. Neither were that impressive, but these guys aren't coming here to start right away. They're coming here to back up Shedeur Sanders. They're coming here to provide depth. And so I think overall, this transfer portal haul this past weekend, while it wasn't the same as like the offensive line one where it was like boom, 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 5 starters right there for you. I think these guys are quality depth pieces. I think what Colorado was lacking on defense, even on offense at times at certain positions, was depth. You look at the offense line this past year and it was like, okay, this is a really bad offense line. What are they going to do to fix it? And it's like, well, they can't do anything because they don't have the depth necessary. Same thing with the defense line. It's like, okay, this unit is getting gashed. How many guys can we turn to? And then you look around and it's like, just kidding. We have like 3 guys off the bench that are playable. So Colorado's getting the depth they need. They're getting these pieces. It's coming together. I think that they're due for a few more transfers. Hint, hint, wink, wink. That could help them get back to that number 1 spot. Not that it's all about being at the top spot, but it's kind of cool to see because they were at the top spot last year and they got a lot of quality guys. But they need to get some more, I would say, defensive line guys that have some experience. Obviously, there's not a lot of them out there. Joey Slackman, the Penn transfer, just committed to Florida. But you got to do what you got to do. And I think Colorado is heading in the right direction. I think this transfer portal class is going to be a lot more sound than last year's. I think they're taking calculated risks. Last year, I think they were taking just about anyone that had played college football or anyone that wanted to come. And this year, I feel like they're taking really good calculated risk. And I like where the program is headed. I like where the transfer portal class is headed. So we'll see how it pans out. But again, I talked about this all the time. This isn't to shoot down Wiggins or the Alabama transfer. It's to talk about being realistic. Don't get caught up in where they came from. Obviously, they came from LSU. They came from Alabama. They were both highly recruited guys. Same thing with Russell. I think Russell just needs a chance to play. And TCU, I don't know what their problem was this year. They were kind of fraudulent as it gets. But don't get caught up in where they came from. Get caught up in the potential. Right now, I see the 2 defense linemen. I see them as guys who have potential to possibly start, but at the very minimum, provide depth. For Russell, he has a chance to contend for a starting spot at receiver. Now, receiver is really contested. Like I said, Will Shepherd, probably going to start. He's probably the most proven receiver at the college level. You have Travis Hunter, elite. Jimmy Horn, really good. So those 3 right there you're kind of battling for that 4th spot again. It was a situation that we saw last year with Xavier Weaver. He was the Will Shepherd in this case, where it was Weaver, Horn, and Hunter. And it was like, who's that 4th guy? And I think Russell has a chance to be that 4th guy and maybe progress to more. Obviously, with opportunity, he should have a chance to be better than what we saw. So don't get caught up in where they came from. Get caught up in the potential. Right now, I think their potential is depth, possible upside as starters. We will see. It's only December 18th. Obviously, spring ball still has to come around. Obviously, everything still has to come around. But be excited, Colorado. The roster is looking really good. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride or die every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the prices you need at the prices you want, with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Okay, welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I am Kevin Borba. Thank you for making me your first listen every day. I appreciate it. Been getting a lot of support on the YouTube. We hit well over 4,000 subscribers now. We're at like 4,100-ish, and I'd like to see that number grow. Let's get to 5,000 by, I was going to say early signing day, which is in 2 days, which would be great. But let's get there by, we'll say the end of December. You know, I appreciate all the support that we've been getting. A lot of excitement. Coach Ocho, Coach Chad Ochocinco, Coach Johnson. I think he goes by Johnson now. I think it's Chad Ochocinco Johnson is what most people refer to him as. Coach Prime recently made probably one of the funniest appearances I've ever seen him make with Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson on their podcast. Excuse me. I don't feel like we often get to see the side of Coach Prime where he's just loose and having fun. And he was on the nightcap, which is what it's called. And Chad Johnson, which Chad is a very eccentric guy. Side note, probably the best smile in athletics out there. He's got a top tier smile. Those pearly whites are looking real good. I'm jealous. And this is coming from someone who won best smile back in the day. So, Chad Johnson, great smile. He's looking to get into coaching. And unfortunately for him, it doesn't appear that it will be taking place at Colorado. So Ocho goes to Coach Prime. And this isn't a little clip I wrote about over on Athlon. Obviously, it was a kind of a joking thing where Coach Prime rejected him. It's not like you'll never coach for me. It's like come on, be realistic. But Ocho says to Prime, and Shannon Sharpe is just kind of smirking in the background, says, since I already have 37 jobs, let's make it 38. How about you have me to come be that assistant receiver coach? I think, and you guys could go watch the video, I think Coach Prime rejected his, I'm going to call it a job application, not really a job application, but you know what I mean? I think he rejected it before Ocho finished his sentence. Like, I think it was by the time Ocho said the word coach or receiver, Coach Prime was like, you don't want to do that. You ain't dedicated like that. And so, of course, Ocho's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm telling him all the things that telling him why he thinks he's dedicated, telling him why he thinks he'd be a good coach. And Coach Prime again says, yeah, but you ain't dedicated like that. You dedicated to play, but you ain't dedicated to coach. And then when Johnson continued on, Coach Prime says, I will bring you on as an analyst, but you can't be there every day. You ain't going to be there every day. I know you. I do. You do know I know you, like joking with Coach Chad that he's like, I know who you are, right? And then it was just kind of ended at that. But I thought it was a hilarious kind of thing between Chad Johnson or Ochocinco, whoever you want to call him, who is always kind of trying to get in the mix for things. Like, he's a Madden ratings analyst or whatever they're called. Like, he helps Madden with the ratings. He obviously is a podcast host. He's a McDonald's enthusiast. Every time he sees Joe Burrow, or anyone really, I've seen him get into quite a few arguments with Brandon Marshall about the reason that his career was better than Brandon Marshall's health-wise was that he ate more McDonald's, whereas Brandon Marshall ate cleaner and got hurt more. Maybe that's why Coach Prime doesn't want him on the staff. Maybe he doesn't want Ocho going up to Travis Hunter and being like, you looked a little fatigued after playing 300 snaps. What would help? A Big Mac in between the first two quarters in the second half. But no, I think realistically, I think Chad Johnson is a misunderstood player. I think a lot of the times people get caught up in the, I would say the extracurriculars that came with him, like the talking, the name changing, just the distractions that I won't say distraction, but you know what I mean? Like he was never just there to play football. There was always something else with him. Actually, former great kicker. I think he made a field goal in a preseason game or something. But I think Coach Prime would value I think Coach Prime would value what he has to offer his team, which is why he probably proposed the analyst thing, which I don't know if he'll actually come as an analyst. Ocho did say he'd move from Miami to Boulder, which Coach Prime did not believe. But I think he would value what he could bring knowledge-wise. I think Coach Prime, where he has his concerns, are Ocho's dedication. Because like he says, he has 37 jobs. I don't know if that's the actual number, but he's a busy fella. He's a young guy. And I just don't think Coach Prime is wanting to kind of take that chance right now and bring on someone who may not be fully focused on the task at hand, which is helping elevate this program. Now, I'm not trying to say that Chad Johnson doesn't bring anything to the program, but I don't think he's in a space where he's ready to be a coach now. He did help out with the Browns. He was a temporary instructor or something like that in 2016. He let Hugh Jackson let him come work with the receivers for a little bit, but he doesn't have any coaching experience, which I thought it was a funny video. You guys should go check it out. I think Coach Prime knows that Ocho's a jokester, and I don't know if Ocho is being serious. It's kind of hard to tell with him sometimes. He did kind of complain that neither Coach Prime or Shannon Sharpe, who's a guest on or a host on First Take, will neither of them will invite him into their place of work, and he seemed a little offended by that. So maybe he is a little serious. I don't know. But either way, he will not be coaching at Colorado anytime soon. So unfortunately, Coach Ocho, not today. Departures. Colorado has had a few people leave in the past few days, and I'm going to talk about where they ended up and probably why they felt it was best to leave. But first, let's take a quick break. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I'm Kevin Borba. I appreciate you guys for making me your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow. Make sure to give me 5 stars on Spotify and Apple. I'd appreciate that as well. I appreciate all your support. Departures. Colorado has lost a offensive line commit, Isaiah Walker, who was the JUCO offensive. He was their lone, basically their lone signee in this 2024 class. From the offensive line spot before Jordan Seaton committed. He is going to Texas State. It appears he flipped his commitment, which, I mean, it's one of those things where I think he kind of saw the writing on the wall. I think he saw a lot of Colorado brings in, Coach Prime, brings in 5 offensive linemen in 5 days, and it's just a lot of competition. There's not as many spots, and obviously Isaiah Walker wants to play. And Colorado had brought in 4 offensive line transfers that are really good. Obviously they brought in, and this was all within like a few days. They brought in Tyler Johnson from Houston. They brought in Ukiri Walker from UConn. They brought in Matthew Bedford and Khalil Benson from Indiana, and then they bring in Justin Mayers. And then they also had Jordan Seaton. So Isaiah Walker, he's a tackle. Obviously didn't think that Colorado was the best place for him to be anymore, which, I mean, understandable. I think the hard part about bringing in these portal guys is you have to understand that other guys who are coming in as transfers, JUCO guys, whatever it may be, they want to play too, and sometimes the writing's on the wall. Plus, Colorado only has a few more spots open. I think they're currently at the numbers around 81 or 82. So technically that means there's only 3 spots open. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's more departures, or that just means that we are pretty close to seeing the final roster for this next season. But they had 3 players announce their transfer destination. I think I talked about a couple of them before, but I'm going to talk about them a little more here. Van Wells, Oregon State. I thought he was the one player. Honestly, I thought he was the one player that could come back and start for Colorado Center. I thought he did well. He had 2 years of Power 5 starting experience under his belt. I think he just learning a new system. The rest of the offense line didn't have a lot of continuity, and so the unit struggled as a whole. But I thought Van Wells was a pretty good player. Then Anthony Hankerson, the running back, going to Oregon State. Very interesting decision for him because obviously they have Damian Martinez, who I think is one of the best running backs in the country. I think if he kind of gets there and maybe they form a nice dynamic duo, I'm excited to see what Anthony Hankerson could do in an expanded role. Oregon State typically has one of the better offense lines in the country, and maybe being behind a better offense line will only enhance Anthony Hankerson's ability. And then they had Gerard Christian, the offensive tackle, who also recently committed to Oregon State. He did not have the best of seasons. He gave the most sacks, gave a lot of pressures, had a hard time staying in front of his assignment. Realistically, these departures are more depth departures in my opinion. I don't think Colorado lost a lot. I thought Hankerson was honestly the best running back this year, but I think with a better offensive line, Alton McCaskill will be healthy. Dylan Edwards is there. I think this running back room still has a lot of talent to give. Offensive line wise, Colorado Coach Prime replaced all 5. He said he was going to bring in new guys, and he's doing just that, and he's bringing in a lot of them. Coach Prime does not want to get caught not having a proper group of protection for his quarterback, for his son, because obviously you can't win games when your quarterback's on his back the whole time. And Shannon Sanders was sacked over, I think it was 50 times, and you just can't have that. And so understandable that these guys decided to depart, but I expect Colorado to make some big moves. Early signing day, December 20th. We're going to have the best. We're going to have some exciting moves And we're going to talk about all things that you guys need to know about who I think can make an impact right away, who's the biggest get, the biggest sleeper. And I'm going to keep you covered here on Locked On Buffs. So make sure to like, subscribe, follow. Make sure to give me 5 stars on Spotify and Apple. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great start to your week. And I will see you guys tomorrow.